Starting a business in itself is you're just going to make like so many mistakes. It's like every day I was making tons of mistakes, from like hiring too many people to not hiring the right people to not sometimes planning enough. Because when you're running your own agency, you're thinking about cash flow for the next 6 months to a year. We had to constantly think about, okay, salaries are going to be going every month. How do we make sure that everybody's paid for, and how do we have a stream of projects coming in? So initially, I really struggled with that. I made a lot of mistakes there. One mistake that I definitely remember very clearly is working with a client that I shouldn't have, even when my business partner was like, I don't get a good feeling about this guy. And I was like, when we used to work with clients, they would bring just piles of cash with them because it was an easy way for them to spend their black money. And when somebody had a big pile of cash on the table, it was very hard to say no. So yes, early on when I was like starry-eyed, I made a lot of yeses when I should have made a lot of no's.
You must have had some really strong creative influences to help guide you on that path. That sort of kicked off your not just your love for design, but the type of design that you sort of you gravitated towards. So, is there some influences you could speak to that sort of guided you along the way?
My biggest influence was Corbusier, and he's the guy who designed the city that I used to live in. So Corbusier was hired by Nehru, and he was commissioned to design this modern contemporary city. So Corbusier, the Swiss-French architect, he came in and he made like the master plan for the city. He designed it on a grid. It was a very Bauhaus, utilitarian, concrete, cement. His analogy was that the streets are the arteries, like the veins and arteries of a human being. So his analogies, his thinking, how we have like a golden ratio, he had used a ratio of a human being that he had created, like a man. And so he not only designed like the city, the furniture, he used to also paint. So he was definitely one of my biggest influences in terms of, especially in my early career. And I was really fascinated the way he designed. Like, if you think about it now, like, how you were describing your story from earlier, that when we started out, when we got our first computers, when we were sketching, drawing, all that stuff, or whatever we were trying to learn, we didn't have resources and internet and all that stuff. And now when you kind of think about people like Corbusier, they didn't have the internet. They didn't have inspirational Pinterest boards. They literally had to think about real problems that people had and then design around them and solution those, right? I feel like they were like the true thinkers of their time. I mean, they paved the path for where we're today. We can totally, use their teachings and learnings. I mean, of course, there's a lot of great examples from graphic design, architecture. But for me, Corbusier was definitely a great, I would say, scaffolding to me becoming a creative person.